I want to look at a basic combination and some of the power mechanics that are involved, and then show you how it relates with another technique that we teach and how that technique can be used to actually enhance power within the base technique. See, these two techniques are related. In fact, the first technique is really sort of a foundational, a building block, you might say, of the system. We use this combination very often, and we use the formulation process to rework the technique and make changes within the technique to arrive at many of the combinations that are in our system. So the technique that I'm referring to, one that we come back to all the time, he's going to throw a straight punch, and I step out of line of attack with a thrust punch to the ribs. I draw back, and then we have a back punch to the temple. Now what I want to do, what I want to start with actually, is just looking at the initial movement, because there's a lot of mechanics within that movement, and mechanics oftentimes that are missing when students perform this combination. So you're going to throw a straight punch. A lot of people do this technique, and here's what happens. 1, 2. Their hands are moving, but their body isn't. And that's understanding how to move the body is a critical component of this technique. You have to understand that. We've talked about momentum before. We've looked at some of the physics behind martial arts. We understand that to maximize our impact, we need to maximize 2 main elements. The first being the mass that's behind the technique, the mass that's behind the strike. Now, you're never going to be able to hit with all of your body mass unless you're tackling the person, throwing yourself at the person. But we can do things, we can incorporate different body actions to maximize the effective mass behind our technique. So that's what we're really going to be looking at tonight. And then the second, of course, is the speed of delivery. And so we do many things to work on developing your speed. Tonight we're looking at the body actions, however. So he throws his punch. I'm stepping out of line of attack. I'm not just throwing this punch and leaving it at that. It's my body. And so the first element is to incorporate your body. It's timing. He throws his punch, and now my body should still be in motion. See, this is one of the reasons why we land on impact in many of our techniques, whether we're throwing a kick and then following up with a palm, and we're timing it so that we have marriage of gravity. Okay? That landing, if I land and then strike, what happens? My body's not in motion anymore. But if I land while I'm striking, now my body is still projecting forward at that moment of impact. And the landing, I want you guys to ensure that you're dropping your height as you land. Okay, you're not just gonna, you're not just gonna land and maintain the same height. I want you to drop your height so that you solidify your base. So he punches, and that's the first piece we're emphasizing. Dropping the height, projecting through, and you're using borrowed force, which of course I'm borrowing his momentum. He's stepping into it. And that is one devastating hit, okay, if you incorporate all of that. So start with that, and then I want to look at some of the other actions that are involved just in that initial move, then we'll move to the next movement within the technique and look at that. Okay? Get to work. So now we've seen how we can use projection, right? When he steps in, we have linear motion of our center of mass. Is there a way that we can use sort of a compound action to further enhance the technique? Now, whenever you're combining your actions, the different movements that we use to increase body momentum, whenever you're doing that, you have to be careful. Certain actions can work against each other. And I also want you guys to pay attention to your initial position when you're performing the technique, because depending on your point of origin, depending on how you're oriented relative to your opponent, that can change what actions you're able to perform or the effect that those actions will have. For instance, if you've noticed, we're going to use rotation now. Okay, so now we have projection, but we're also going to have rotation of our center, or projection of our center of mass and rotation around our center of mass. Well, if I start in a square neutral position, when I step offline, look at the direction I'm rotating. What direction do I want to rotate to increase the power of our strike? Do you see how they're working against each other a little bit? That's not to say there isn't rotation in the technique. When he steps in, you can see I am rotating. But what if we started, instead of from a square neutral position to our opponent, what if we started from a side neutral? So that now, instead of starting here, my waist is essentially, it's already wound up, ready to engage in the appropriate direction to maximize the power of our punch. So now when he punches, now you can see you're going to get a much greater effect out of that rotation. It all depends on how you start, your initial reference frame with regard to your opponent. So he throws his punch, and we rotate. The next question then is, what can we do to enhance the second punch? So I'm going to let you guys work on that for a little bit. Work on the rotation. Try to make sure you're incorporating both movements. And then we're going to come back. We'll look at the next punch within the technique and see if there's anything we can do to help enhance the rotational effect of that punch as well. So now you see from side neutral, I think you can see it's very easy to incorporate rotation. So now we have both linear and angular momentum involved in the technique. But that second punch, what about the power of that second punch? Well, when you draw back, you can sort of wind your hips up again a little. There's going to be, when I throw my punch, from the point where I throw my punch to I get ready to throw the second punch, there's a time delay. But we don't have time to really wind up for it, right? It's going to be sort of a miniature action. So that brings us to our next technique. Not that this, if he throws his punch, this is very effective. It's a good, basic, straightforward technique. And it's important to understand. And the way this technique is written, it has some advantages over the other technique. So let's look at the other technique. What if, while I'm getting ready to throw my second punch, see this, there's some sort of dead space here. It's 1, 2. What if I throw something in the middle of that? Now, if I hit him again, his arm will probably respond to the pain. Even if it doesn't, this is going to be very fast. And the reason I'm emphasizing that is why. I'm leaving an opening. But this is very similar if you play chess or checkers. Sometimes you leave openings. Sometimes you sacrifice certain pieces so that you have a greater opportunity down the road. And by doing this, a couple of things happen. He's getting hit very fast with more strikes. Okay? He's getting hit with more strikes in a shorter period of time. And that second strike allows me to wind up a little bit more for my last strike. So now he throws his punch, and we have a very quick 1, 2, 3 series of strikes.